Welcome, everyone. I want to thank you very much for joining Axios Systems today. I'm Emily Sturm, the Marketing Manager for Axios, and today our webcast is on ITSM in the Cloud. What does it mean for you? So if you registered for that, you're in the right place. Axios has a special guest with us today, Sharon Taylor, the President of Aspect Group, who is definitely a well-known and respected figure within today's ITSM community. As the former Chief Architect and current Chief Examiner for ITIL, Sharon's the author of numerous ITSM books and is a regular columnist for a variety of global publications. Her contributions in the community and to best practice are definitely based on extensive professional experience that she has in this industry, and she's been both an active ITSM professional and now serves as the President of Aspect Group, leading AGI's consultancy, training, and ITSM practice, working with clients throughout North America and Asia. To give you a little bit of background about Axios, we've been laser focused on the ITSM and ITIL space for over 23 years now. We offer our ITSM and Service Catalog software assist in flexible on-premise or SaaS models. And so with that, I want to go ahead and turn it over to Sharon, who's going to take us through the agenda for today.
Thanks, Emily. I think Emily did such a fine job of introducing me. There's not too much more I could say about myself, except to say good day to all of the participants and to thank you for joining us. Over the past number of years, I've been doing a number of white papers and webinars for Axios, and they tend to be a company that stays at the leading edge of the technology and what's changing in the world of IT service management. So it's really timely, I think, that we're putting on this webinar and about to release a white paper with respect to cloud computing, because Axios is now working in that space, and we'll talk to you about that a little bit later. In terms of what I'd like to talk to you about today, I've put up a slide here with a bit of the items that we're going to cover on the agenda. And the first thing we want to look at is, what is cloud computing? If you ask 5 people, you kind of get 5 different interpretations. So we want to clarify what we mean when we say cloud computing. What does it actually involve? And have a look at some of the different cloud service models that are available today. We're going to talk about IT service management in a cloud environment. What does that mean to you as an IT organization or as a business customer? And then we're going to look at something that's also newly emerging in the cloud space, which is ITSM as the cloud. So we're going to cover off those things over the next hour and take a few questions at the end. And hopefully you'll come away knowing a little bit more about what cloud computing is than before you dialed up today. So what is cloud computing? Well, people have asked me this over the last couple of years, what cloud computing is, and why is it so popular? Well, really, cloud computing in the terms of a concept has been around for a long time, so it's not really something that's new. It's, in my opinion, it's a new spin on an old idea. Using third-party providers to host infrastructure or to host applications and provide support is really a form of cloud computing, especially when it's done over the internet, which is what we think of when we think of the cloud. But there have been some changes with respect to cloud computing that does make a lot of cloud services new. So what hasn't changed is that cloud computing is the same as it has been in the past, in that it's a service provided by outsourced service providers. Often it will involve storing data, processing transactions, and all of this is being done outside of the company's network itself, hence the term cloud. Cloud, of course, came from an old term that we used in the past in the industry to refer to network, which was done outside of a company's own network. And it offers highly flexible hosting options. So those kinds of things haven't really changed. It's still a collection of externally managed service delivery models, which we've given some new names for. It covers a wide range of technologies in terms of software, hardware, and all sorts of other things. And it's not a replacement for service management. And I think that's an important message. There has been some misinformation floating around in the industry that with the emergence of cloud computing of today, there is no need for us to worry about service management anymore. That's all being done by the cloud providers. And I think you might agree that if you've been involved, that that's definitely not the case. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. So what is different about cloud computing today is that as opposed to the older models where it was generally a relationship between an IT customer or a business customer and a third-party provider, we've got such things as public cloud services which serve a lot more industry sectors. So how cloud computing is provided is really what's different, and the different models that are in place today to offer cloud services. So let's have a look at some of those models. You'll see a picture on the screen here, which I thought was really poignant in terms of the message that clouds really aren't just clouds. If you look at the slide, you see that we've got different kinds of clouds. And if you know anything about meteorology at all, or if you watch your local weather station, you'll probably hear them talk about the different kinds of clouds. Well, what does that actually mean? Well, in a weather sense, it means that different types of clouds bring us different results. So if we have cumulonimbus clouds, we can expect we're going to have some thunderstorms. If we have cirrus clouds, we're probably going to expect to have sunny skies and very little in the way of active weather. So just as in meteorology, cloud computing is not all the same either. So we need to take a look at, well, what actually are we talking about? Well, if we think about cloud computing as a service portfolio, for example, if I can use an ITIL term, there are a number of different models within the service portfolio that come to mind. The one that's really the most popular that people are aware of, and I think that people refer to the most when they're talking about cloud computing or explaining what it is this one that you see on the screen right now, called software as a service. We all know in this industry that software as a service has been around for quite some time, but cloud computing has kind of given it a bit of a different spin in a sense. It still has some of the same ingredients. So for example, it's structured so that it's a multi-tenant design, which means a provider of software as a service, in this instance of cloud computing, will have multiple customers all accessing space on the same and using the same application or applications. And so you see in the diagram it shows that there's centrally within the cloud applications and various customers who are accessing those applications and using them as a service. What this does for this particular model is it allows the customer to avoid having to expend any capital on setting up this kind of a service. Oftentimes, providers will offer it as a pay-as-you-go on-demand service, so you pay for only what you use. So from a benefit perspective, this means that this kind of a cloud service offers the customer a lot of cost avoidance in terms of benefits with hardware, software, capital operational expenditures, etc. So oftentimes, software as a service, or most times, I think, it will be delivered by a single provider model. So one service provider providing multiple applications or single application to numerous customers all through the cloud or using the intranet. Some examples of that are assyst's own SaaS, or software as a service, for ITSM, things that you might be familiar with like Google Apps or Salesforce. So those are all examples of the software as a service type cloud service model. The next one that we see, which isn't talked about as much, but is often referred to within the concept of what cloud computing is infrastructure as a service. So it's slightly different in terms of its structure. It's more of a utility-based computing service where it's offering transactional-based charging, transactional-based use, on-demand use, etc. And if you look at the diagram we've got here, it shows sort of what this model will look like. So you have your various business units. You may have only one business unit, or you may have multiple business units, and they are all using services that are supported and provided by either their local IT department or their local IT organization. With infrastructure as a service in the cloud computing portfolio, we have the provider who is external, who is actually the cloud service provider. And they'll be providing some utility computing and offering such things as the use of hardware, storage, servers. And in this particular relationship, IT is the customer, as opposed to software as a service, where often it's the end business customer who is the direct link between the external cloud provider and the business. In this case, IT is generally the customer. So if you look at the diagram, you'll notice that it shows the cloud provider as the infrastructure provider who's doing things, in this case, like providing monitoring of services or applications, providing security, providing storage, and providing some infrastructure or hardware that goes along with that. The relationship between the IT organization and the external provider is direct. In other words, the supplier management belongs to the IT organization, who works in a relationship with the cloud provider. The IT organization is then the interface between itself and the business in managing and supporting the services directly to the business unit. So this model is what we call the infrastructure as a service cloud portfolio model. The third one that is probably newer in terms of what's available in the industry, mostly due to the technological advances we've had in the last couple of years, is the portfolio as a service. This is an entirely different relationship from the prior two that we looked at. So in this one, you'll see that most all of the services that we might make use of as a customer, so desktop computing, teleconferencing, mobile technology, webinars, for example, reporting, analytical stuff, conferencing, that kind of thing, is all something that is customer-owned, in this case, or IT-owned internally to the organization, is developed by the internal IT organization using cloud infrastructure as the platform for development. It's hosted, these services are all hosted via the cloud, but they're supported oftentimes locally by the IT organization directly related to the customer. So in this relationship, similar to the infrastructure as a service, IT is still the customer, but now the mechanism by how things are delivered and supported is different. So the cloud provider is providing the platforms, but the customer provides the ownership, the support, the development, the testing, and so on. In this model, the cloud is relatively invisible to the business. It directly interfaces with its own IT organization, who owns, develops, and supports the services, but they're hosted on external platforms. So this is something that's slightly newer in our industry, but becoming much more popular. And we're going to talk a little bit about why that is, what the benefits to these different models actually are in just a little bit. So that's kind of a basic idea of the different types of cloud service offerings within the cloud service portfolio. So we have software as a service, infrastructure as a service, and platform as a service. So if you think about your own organizations, you could probably come up with analogies to the kinds of services you have and how they might relate to either of the three different models that we've been talking about. Now, in addition to those models, the way they are offered to the customer is also comes in a variety of different models, and I call those cloud service models, which we're going to look at now.